And let's get ready to RPG!
Inner Radiance Torrent! Welcome back, everybody, to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melenda, and I am welcoming you to a return to where we started, Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We're going to be talking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition tonight, which we have not done for since the Kineticist, but obviously we talked about Eldamon. What is going on, everybody? For those of you who just joined us, Kyle says, "What the hell?" That was a throwback to all spells ranked divine level 2. And Mr. Henry Epp, from about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, wanted an Inner Radiance torrent. Anyways, let's welcome everybody. Hey, we got a poll up, so go ahead and throw your votes in. Looks like people have 31 votes. I clicked on never, got the chance by accident. Okay, so we're off by one. Crazily, I'll leave this up for another minute or two. But yeah, welcome everybody. I went hard with that one. Yeah, that was we were just starting the all spells ranked back there, and with that one. Hey, look, people pay for the performance. You got to bring it. Thanks, Pathfinder. Appreciate it. Well, I hope you enjoy the VOD. We started off, by the way, with a super chat from our friend Cyber. Cyber said, "I went to bed 4 hours ago so I could get enough rest for this and still sleep a bit before work." Excellent. Alas, still no water pressure rules to discuss. Yes, if there was ever a place where water pressure rules did not belong, it would definitely be, I would think, in the Mythic rules set. Welcome, everybody. All right, so I'm going to end this here. It looks like 8% of you played with the Mythic rules and loved them. 11% of you said you played with them and they weren't great. So only 20% of us said that they even played with the Mythic rules from Pathfinder 1, and we kind of split on whether they liked them or not. A whopping 43% of you have never played PF1. That's crazy to me. And then 37% of you just never got the chance. Well, I did, and I gotta say, I am a big fan of Mythic Adventure, which was Pathfinder 1. In fact, I have 2 copies of the book. I thought this was a very fun, a very unbalanced in a balanced way. I was a big fan of it. It was a center part of my last big Pathfinder 1 campaign. And so I have very fond memories of the Mythic rules as well. So we're going to talk tonight. And this is something that we've been theorizing could exist for a long time, which is Mythic rules for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And of course, last year they started, hinting at it, and here we go. It finally came out as part of the War of the Immortals, War of Immortals book, and we're really interested. I'm really interested to see. Now, I have looked through these Mythic rules back when they came out about about a month or so ago. But I have not really dug deep into them. And I kind of did that on purpose because I wanted to share with you my thoughts as we sort of read through these rules together and sort of, react to this. Now, I understand I am a harsh critic of many things, but I do have a certain amount of bias because I did enjoy what Mythic rules brought to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, or sorry, Pathfinder 1st Edition. So while I understand Pathfinder 2nd Edition is a different beast, I am hoping that the spirit, if not the letter, of the game rules intent is still there. Now, before we go ahead and get started today, I did very quickly want to do a real quick little, I guess you would say, plug for our good friend Jace. So I have a link in the description below, but our friend Jace, a member of our Knights of Last Call Patreon, is running a Kickstarter. They are based out of New Zealand, and they are putting together a series of comic anthologies. And they are pretty much close to their goal. So if you enjoy, the kind of independent comic book movement, if you want to support a thriving underground art scene in New Zealand, then maybe check out Funtime Comics Anthology. So this is their ongoing attempt here. It's a full color magazine. It's celebrating independent cartoonists, independent illustrators, and has 80 pages of art. And of course, they're from New Zealand, so basically it was made by hobbits. And no, I wasn't paid for this or anything like that. It's just a cool member of our patron, and as a wannabe artist in some capacity, whenever anybody goes ahead and put something out there and commits to selling and putting their art out there and trying to make some money off of it, like, I think that's a very worthwhile goal. So in any case, if you're interested in that, if you want to just take a look at it, there's a link in the description below. You can go ahead and check them out on Kickstarter. So good luck to you all over there at Funtime Comics. All right. See who we got here today. Looks like we got some of our usual suspects. We got some new people here. Alternate Game Master is here. Welcome. Jace, the Alternate Game Master. Hello. If you have any questions, you can ask Alternate GM in the chat about their comic book project. Nutrimancer, my body is ready. Cybersmith, again, thank you. You've been looking forward to this. Wonderful. You're starting to get into potentially GMing PF2. Yeah, that last bundle was a really good deal. I think it's gone. I think it's over. But if you missed it, that was a great deal. But Jackal, what is up? Good to see you. Yes, the internet is working today. Seem to have very strong internet, and we're closely monitoring the computer situation. I've got some monitors up. I want to watch my GPU temperatures and see how they do. So, I ran a third party published AP level 120 and made the mythic level at 6-ish. All right. Ended with them fighting a god in space, of course. Yes, my mythic campaign ended with them fighting a ancient red dragon mythic rank 10. So an ancient red dragon, already CR 25, each mythic rank against a CR. So it was a CR 35 dragon. So zang. You were here to learn some Pathfinder 2 things. Me too. Me too. Yeah, really. Okay, cool, Gonzo. So not as much PF2, but you do have the PF1 experience. Yeah. I think Paizo wanted to reverse engineer what Owlcat did with the Path of the Righteous video game. Interesting. Making some Thanksgiving cocktails. That sounds delicious. What is a Thanksgiving cocktail? Is there like a specific Thanksgiving cocktail? Like what is it like turkey stock or like a gravy sour or something? Like what do you what are we doing here? What's up, Elder Goblin Games? Yo to you as well. How can you play the sequel if you haven't played the first one? Exactly, Karama. You need to go play Pathfinder 1 right now. Is this a bit like the Beckme Immortals set? No. And that's actually something I really liked about the Mythic rules as well. Which is that the thing that I liked about the Mythic rules is, well, I mean, we'll get into that. We'll get into this here in a second. Me, a critic? You would have never guessed? Yes. Well, that's fine. Elia says, I've been dreading this day for a long time. Yes. Mythic from Mind Blown. A lot of PF1 GMs just refused to use the Mythic rules, and I don't blame them. It was a lot to track. I mean, in a game that you already had, especially if you're a spellcaster, and a lot of classes were spellcasters, I just didn't feel like it was like that much more to do. So, but it's fine. Okay. So before we get into the War of Immortal Mythic rules, I just generally speaking kind of want to talk a little bit about Mythic and where that sort of lies with me and how I feel about it, which is my first. So D&D Basic, the third version of Basic, if you will, commonly called Beckme Basic, had this idea of this progression of characters who started at beginner, basic, expert, master, companion, and then immortal. And it literally made this idea of ascending to sort of this epic level part of the core game experience. And that kind of went away in 2nd edition and 3rd edition. But then 3rd edition D&D, as an expansion, created the Epic Level Handbook. And the Epic Level Handbook gave you rules for taking your character beyond level 20. And then D&D 4th edition made the game levels 1 to 30. And suddenly the last tier of play, levels 21 through 30, was called the Epic tier. And when you got to your 21st level, you chose an Epic Destiny, which was sort of like, what is your character's, great final quest? Like, what are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish that will like forever shift or change the world? sort of the one of the easiest go-to de facto epic destinies was demigod. And the idea is that at 21st level, your character basically began down the path of divinity. And at 30th level, after you completed your destiny quest, you achieved, apotheosis, and you became a god. But there were other ones as well, which, we really enjoyed, and we thought that was a lot of fun. So those were all really cool, but that was all end of the game type stuff. What I really liked about the Pathfinder 1 Mythic Adventure rules is that Mythic was a separate scale of power separate to your character's level. So instead of Mythic being something that just gets tacked on at the end and is basically just more levels to play through, Mythic represented a separate set of powers and abilities that were very powerful, no doubt. But you could theoretically have Mythic, where you could be high Mythic rank and still be low level. And so the Mythic rank itself advanced differently. And it was usually tied to great trials or great deeds that your character had to overcome, defeating mythic monsters or doing really important sort of plane shaking type behavior. And that alternate axis of advancement, I thought was really cool and really well done. Now, generally speaking, you probably weren't going to be Mythic rank 8 at level 2. You could have been, but there was some idea that Mythic rank and level would kind of coincide, but they didn't have to. And again, they were on different progression tracks, and I really, really like that. So the other thing that I liked about Mythic is I like resources. I can't help myself. And Mythic introduced this idea of Mythic points, which was a currency that your character gained. It was a well of Mythic power that they could draw from. And all Mythic characters had this, and all Mythic characters could use this pool of power to do certain things, like improve die rolls, especially D20 rolls. However, by choosing Mythic powers and Mythic feats, you could get your Mythic power to do more things. I liked for these Mythic characters, who are moving more and more towards that sort of superhero genre, to have these, get out of jail free cards, right? To have that mega elixir, in the backpack where, if the going gets tough, well, the tough get going. And your Mythic characters had this incredible ability to sort of bounce back. And if you'll allow me to indulge me here, with this little bit of a discourse, the thing that I really appreciated about this was right off the bat, once you became Mythic Tier 1, so as soon as your character became Mythic, you immediately gained, the first ability you gained was Hard to Kill. And whenever you're below 0 hit points, you automatically stabilize. If you have an ability that allows you to act while at 0 hit points, you still lose hit points. In addition, you don't die until your total number of negative hit points is equal to or greater than double your Constitution score, instead of just your Constitution score, which was in that game. So right off the bat, they understood, if you're going down this Mythic route, we want to make it so that it's pretty hard to kill you. Your character is kind of becoming a superhero. And we always talk about high-level D&D and high-level Pathfinder basically being superheroes anyways, but Mythic really took it to the next level. And then as you gained levels, you would gain Mythic powers and Mythic feats, which would give you different abilities. Now, some of the things that I really like, and I just recall some of these very specifically. I like them because they fundamentally they took a core premise of the game and they shifted it. And they basically said, in a way, they said, the rules don't apply to you. And two of the best examples I can give of this is we had a paladin, Volk, who's a dwarven paladin, and he took the champion archetype of Mythic rank, and he took Never Tell Me the Odds or something like that. It was his Mythic feat. And this is it's not even that good of a feat. Right? It's not even that good, to be honest with you, but it didn't matter because it was so awesome. And what it does basically is rolling a nat 1 no longer meant that you automatically failed or that you automatically crit failed. Now, rolling a 1 still meant you rolled a 1. So, you're only adding 1 to your D20. But it took this fundamental concept of the game that only applies to regular people, right? When you roll a 1, of course you fail. When you roll a 1, of course it's a critical fumble or whatever. And it just said, nope, rolling a 1 for you is just normal. And that's not even really that powerful. It's only going to come up 5% of the time. And most of the time, a lot of times, if you roll a 1, you're probably going to fail anyways. Maybe not so much in 3rd edition or Pathfinder 1. But, you know, like, I mean, we've talked before about how the ACs weren't super bloated. It wasn't really necessarily tied to level. And so, you know, your character could have a really high attack bonus. And on that first attack roll, you roll in that 1 and you still hit. And like, even if that doesn't come up a lot, it feels mythical. It feels powerful, right? It feels like I'm breaking the rules of this game. I am a cut above, right, what I was or what the game expects me to be. And I really, really enjoyed that. And then probably the most epic and ultimate version of the use of mythic rules came in the very final fight of the campaign against the aforementioned ancient red dragon with 10 mythic ranks. Metarak. And in the course of this campaign, or the course of this fight, the party mostly got stunned and were almost dead. And our wizard, Varen, went to use a wish to restore everybody to full life. And, of course, they were stunned. And I was like, well, you can't do that. You're stunned. And he said, not with Mythic Wish. Okay. And obviously they were 20th level. But, you know, this idea that you had this spell, not just wish, right, but Mythic Wish. And I'll read it to you all here just so you can kind of appreciate this. Here we go. When using Mythic Wish to duplicate another spell, you can duplicate a mythic spell, you know, blah, blah, blah. You can also produce any of the effects that normally would modify a non-wish. If you use Mythic Wish to remove injuries and afflictions, you can expend a number of uses of mythic power to remove that number of additional afflictions. If you use Mythic Wish to revive the dead, you can expend a second use of your mythic power to negate the target's permanent level. But here's the thing, augmented. If you expend 2 uses of your mythic power, when you cast Mythic Wish, you can cast a silent, stilled Mythic Wish, even if you're helpless or couldn't otherwise take actions. So basically, this stunned wizard tapped into their mythic power to cast a Mythic Wish and was able to cast us basically a total party heal spell from being stunned. And obviously that's powerful, and obviously that's broken. But man, it was so cool. Like it was just like this, you know, this just ultimate game moment. And obviously you have to have access to Wish, so you're already pretty high level, but it was just very cool. And it just made the game take on a different, you know, tone. But again, they were also very much, you know, the in our campaign, the gaining of Mythic was pretty diegetic, right? It was tied into the campaign itself. It was tied into the strange energies. The same source that Metarak was using in order to gain mythic ranks was the source the PCs was using, right? They were just tapping into the same latent energy source. And as they went through these trials and gained these exposures to it, it's almost like radiation in a way. It sort of built up within them. So, you know, I think that it, you know, levels can sometimes be a little bit wonky, but mythic tiers and mythic ranks were very tied into the game. And I always really appreciated that. We had another super chat, sorry, from Cyberspace. I think the core issue with Pathfinder 1 Mythic was rocket tag of that game. Owlcat did a lot to address that in Kingmaker, which made implementing it easier. Hard to shine if fights last 6 to 12 seconds tops. Well, to be fair, Pathfinder 1, I think without Mythic, was already fairly close to rocket tag. But, you know, I don't necessarily know that I felt like I mean, yes, certainly there were some very powerful mythic combinations, and, you know, Mythic Smite and Mythic Strike or whatever were very powerful. But maybe it was just the way that we played our games, you know, like mythic creatures themselves. You know, a lot of times mythic powers didn't really do as much against other mythic creatures. And, you know, when you're fighting normal stuff, it's like at a certain point in the campaign, I'm always of the belief that, like, it's just, you know, it's fine to let the PCs just kick ass and take names, you know? So I was a really big fan of that, but I never played the Owlcat version of, you know, Wrath of the Immortals or whatever it was called. So I don't know anything about that. War of the Immortals, Wrath of the, I don't know what it's called, but, exactly. Yeah. The mythic ability. Yep. Exactly. I was talking about that one. That was awesome. That was really awesome. William says, I had a bonkers shield paladin guardian striker who used a shield as his main weapon and was a cheese grater tank, blocking attacks and carving up energies with huge auras of shields in the Pathfinder 1 War of the Wrath of the Righteous. Got it. Yeah, so, you know, I like the fun abilities. I like the cool additional elements. So again, I'm a fan of Mythic. I'm a fan of, you know, like, if you're going to do it, right? And you know, if you're going to go high level, high power D&D, then let's get into it. So that brings us to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And right off the bat, we have a potential conundrum, which is that far more so than Pathfinder 1, Pathfinder 2 is expressly designed around balance, right? And trying to keep characters, within a certain range of power. You have obviously you have more powerful options and you have less powerful options, but by and large, they have done a really good job of mostly just letting you kind of pick whatever and doing okay. So when I think about how Mythic presented itself in the original game, that core concept is sort of at odds with what we get from Pathfinder 2. So I'm really especially interested to see how did they manage the balance between making this so that, you know, you have that feeling of, wow, I feel like I'm this mythic character versus I'm also totally balanced and I'm not actually that much more powerful. So real quick here, again, I'm not going to go through all the rules. If you're interested in picking it up, you should definitely pick it up. There's a lot in this book that we're not going to cover today. There's new classes. There's a whole thing. But we're going to look at the Mythic rules. So right off the bat, I like that this is diegetic. And by the way, before we really get into it, the main reason from the beginning that folks like Smith and I were like, oh, Mythic would be so easy to do in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You just make it an archetype. And, you could either do it as a free archetype or a bonus archetype system. But, maybe you do it not necessarily at like 2, 4, 6, 8, but you just have some sort of separate tiering. The game was already sort of designed for this sort of secondary or, tertiary axis of advancement, which we thought was really, really great. Second thing, which is really funny, is, of course, if you've played Northern Reaches, which is our Pathfinder 2 mega game, you'll know that last season, in Season 2, characters could gain Mythic Proficiency over Legend. And I have talked about that since the beginning of this channel, where I said it always irks me that Legendary goes to +8, and it would just be so much nicer in a game that's based around +10, -10 for you to get that proficiency bonus of +10. And I was like, and the name is already just sitting there waiting for you, Mythic. So it is cool that they did this, although how they implemented it was a little bit different than I expected here. And it is on Path Builder, right? I don't think it's on Nethys, but it is on Path Builder, and I think it's also on Nexus, but I could be wrong. But thank you, Trajan. So right off the bat, I like that they are still sticking to this, right? Which is that mythic power can come from being granted by a deity. There's so many cool storytelling options that immediately set the tone of your campaign with Mythic that I think is just so cool. Like, look, I always say this: good GMs create, great GMs steal, right? Like you could totally just do sort of a Greek mythology, almost Percy Jackson inspired thing where each character, right, is, some sort of distant, maybe, maybe they're a distant relative, or maybe they're a direct, son or daughter or whatever of one of the gods, right? And, you're a half-blood, or you're whatever. And already it's like, oh, why are we adventuring together? Oh, because we're all godlings, or, there's just the potential for this is amazing. It could also do like, you go like a Smallville route, right? Where like maybe some great event occurred and, some meteorite landed in your town and it brought with it these strange powers, right? Almost kind of Captain Marvel-esque, right? How she got the power from the Infinity Stone. So there's just like a lot of cool ways that you can just implement this even at the very beginning of the game and have it really, sort of tie into this sort of like really grand, really epic type of progression. Now, it's not going to be like your Lord of the Rings movie, right? Which is these small nobodies who have to struggle against these, incredible odds. This is about, kind of in a way, kind of superheroes. So I think that's fine. But You could be granted by a deity, slaying mythic monsters, completing a mythic deed, or even exposure to a powerful artifact obtained during an event where mythic power is unleashed over a large area, like the God's Reign, or via other means determined by the GM. So very cool, and I like that it's tied into the game world. Every character gains a mythic calling when they first gain mythic power, which influences the fundamental nature of their power. Now, again, going back to Mythic Adventures from first edition, they had 6 different mythic paths or mythic archetypes, and each one was essentially tied to one of the 6 ability scores. You had the champion, who was sort of the mythic character of strength. You had the trickster, who is like the mythic ability of dexterity. You had the defender, who was or guardian, who was the mythic defender of constitution. You had the archmage, who was the int-based one, the marshal, or maybe they were called the marshal, which was the charisma-based one, and then you had the hierophant, who was the wisdom-based one. And obviously the hierophant was kind of like if you're a cleric or you're a druid, you're probably going to go hierophant, but not necessarily. Like, while there were clearly some cleric and hierophant druid abilities there, that you could technically be a class that you might be, maybe you're a paladin, right? And you go that direction, or maybe you're a high wisdom other character and you go that direction. So I thought it was really cool the way they did it. They tied it to the 6 ability scores. So it didn't feel like it was like, if you're a fighter, you have to be this. If you're a rogue, you have to be this. Sure. There was one, if you had a good strength, you want to be this, but we had a tip and a super chat. We'll get to both here. Duncan, thank you.
Duncan DT tipped $5. Kingmaker plus mythic rules equals birthright in PF2?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you might want to do a little bit more with the mythic rules and tie them more into the idea. But yeah, the basic ideas there is very sound. And you could even tie your mythic ranks. Again, I don't know how they're going to do it in this game, but you could tie like your mythic ability or mythic power maybe to your ability to, to gain the, to what you did with your realm and how you incorporated. When you accomplish a great realm victory, that's how you raise your mythic rank. Or maybe the entire group of PCs are all tied to the realm. I think that's very awesome. So very cool. Cybersmith had a $5 super chat. I love how well they integrated the Destinies with themes based off history and folklore. There's clear inspiration from King Arthur, Pancho Villa, etc. Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to mythic storytelling, Cybersmith in particular, I mean, look, I always say, steal from, tropes. That's why they're tropes. But like mythic storytelling this is what we have in spades throughout our course of our history. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying like, I want to have the same sort of legendary arc that these, classic, heroes, had. So I think that's really, really, I think that's really cool. Good stuff. Oh yeah. Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. Potentially mythic. Well, Gandalf the Grey was already an angelic spirit, but it's basically the same basic idea. Yeah, I agree. All right. I clicked on something. All right. So Mythic Proficiency. This is a first bit of rules text here. We have access that allows us to roll various checks using Mythic Proficiency instead of their normal proficiency. These abilities typically involve drawing upon your reserves of mythic power to perform superhuman exploits that would be beyond mortal. Your proficiency is 10 plus your level. Mythic Proficiency is a step above legendary proficiency, so you can even use this if you need that minimum level of proficiency. Unlike trained, expert, master, and legendary proficient, you only use Mythic Proficiency when an ability tells you to do, and these abilities typically require you to expend a mythic point to gain their benefits. So, all right. We are limited in how we can spend them. They're probably tied to us thematically, but this gives us basically anywhere from a +8 to a +2, basically untyped bonus to a die roll. Now, this is really interesting to me because it means that Mythic Proficiency is very powerful when your character is low level. Because if your character is just trained and you use one of your mythic points to allow your character to roll a skill check with Mythic Proficiency, you're gaining an additional +8 on top of that. Cyber pointing out that you could even be untrained, in which case you're actually gaining 10 plus level, but good point. But so at like low level, first couple levels, you're going to be gaining a +8 to hit. That's a huge amount. Now, as your character gains levels, the power of your Mythic Proficiency will diminish. In a sense, it's like your level is starting to mean more than your mythic power would be. Another way to think of it is a low level character using mythic proficiency is probably going to auto hit / auto crit, any random ogre or or other lower level bugbear or something that you're fighting. But your high level character who's fighting a Baylor might only be gaining +4, +2 to their check against them. And so it's not quite as devastating. It's not quite as immediate. It's like your low level character with mythic power can kind of embarrass the ogre or the bugbear, but you're never going to be able, to embarrass the high level creatures because you're still getting a bonus. I mean, a +2 or +4 bonus in Pathfinder 2 is no joke. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really interesting way to do it. And of course, rather than just give it to you carte blanche, you have to, use mythic points to do that, So it's very interesting. Oh, I didn't pop my chat out. Hold on a sec here. Pop out chat. All right. We had a fantastic super chat. Thanks for the Kickstarter shout out for Funtime Comics. It's all voluntary and funds cover printing and promo costs. Yeah. So again, if you are interested in the some cool fun comics, then I would definitely recommend that you check out the Funtime Comics Kickstarter, or the Funtime Comics Anthology, I should say. But again, this is from our friend and channel member, the Alternate GM, and again, you'll be supporting independent artists, doing stuff out of the love of their heart. So really, it's just covering their costs, so they don't have to be completely starving artists, right? I know we all like to back the $10 million Cosmere RPGs, but it's important to back the little folks too as well. All right. Oh, by the way, the link for that is in the description below. If you go into the description of this video, there should be a link that'll take you over to the Kickstarter page. Otherwise, you can search Funtime Comics Anthology probably. But so Mythic Proficiency is interestingly created so that it doesn't completely make level meaningless as you get higher level. This is going to sound surprising, but I actually like that. I think that when you get to the higher levels of the game, I think there's a certain natural tendency to want those challenges to still exist. Getting a +2 or +4 bonus is still such a huge bonus. It's at the low level where I want my character to really just be able to, embarrass these things. So I actually like that. I actually like this rule a lot. Mythic points. All right, now let's get into so in Pathfinder 1, in Mythic Adventure, your character had a pool of mythic points that they could use to empower their abilities, to add bonuses to their die rolls. The classic thing was called Power Surge, which started off at D6 and went all the way up to D12. So D6, D8, D12, or D6, D8, D10, D12. And basically with the Power Surge, you could expend it to increase any D20 roll made by 1D6. And this is essentially the same thing as Mythic Proficiency, except instead of, starting low and going high, it just goes straight to +10, but it doesn't get any better. It's not +10. It's not a linear +10, right? It's like there's like an asymptote, right? It's like a ln of x. It kind of reaches a maximum benefit. It's 10, and so you're getting +8 at low level, but then it's +6, and then it's +4, and then maybe it's +3. But in terms of the number of sort of mythic power that you had per day, it was equal to 3 plus double your mythic tier. Okay, so 5 a day at first tier, 7 a day. So by the time you were 10th tier, it was 23 uses of mythic power a day. And I should also note that it was per day. And that, with any per day abilities, right, you're always going to have this problem. Oh, thank you, Dr. Flamingo, for going ahead and signing up to the adventure. Thank you so much for that. Doc Flamingo, welcome. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the extra support, Doc Flamingo. Thank you. Enjoy the awesome loyalty badge and fun emojis. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Thank you. So, yeah, that's interesting because it starts off very powerful and then it gets less powerful as time goes on. But you had a lot of mythic points in Pathfinder 1, and because it was per day, it was a renewal. You had to replace the card. Damn. I was like, oh no, it reset your count. Sorry, Doflamingo. No, if I could change it, I would. So, daily uses of things has a problem, which is that, there's a tendency to make a 5-minute mythic workday, which is you go into a fight, right? Let's say you're lower mythic tier. You only have 5 or 7 mythic power points per day, but you could use it to add a D6 to any D20 roll. So you go into a fight, and the first attack roll, you add a D6 to it. And the second attack roll, you add a D6 to it. And somebody makes you make a saving throw, you add a D6 to it, right? You get where I'm going with this? After the first fight or two, you're out of mythic power, and you go, that's cool. We go back to sleep. We go camp, we go back to town. And obviously there are times and places where that's not going to be appropriate, but by and large, that is a weird play pattern incentive. So any kind of daily power like that is prone to abuse. However, mythic points in Pathfinder 2nd edition last for the session. Now, this scares me and delights me, because one of the things that I have been seeing more and more with Pathfinder 2 is them moving away from simulationism. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with simulationism, but I think, by and large, that the type of sessions that a lot of Pathfinder 2 players are having don't benefit from intense simulationist rules. I think, so whenever you have something that lasts for a session, it is inherently a sort of more gamist or even narrativist trope. It's really more of a gamist trope. Because, right, like how do you tie, what is a session to your character? One person might have their mythic points and the session only took 20 or 30 minutes in this game time. But another player could, go on a journey that takes days or weeks, and they have the same number of mythic points available to them. So if you're trying to create a, kind of a logic to that, there is none, because it's a very gamist trope that exists outside of it. And it makes it way easier to balance, which I think is a huge thing, which is a huge deal. In fact, I wish more things in Pathfinder 2 were tied to the session instead of tied to the day. So the other difference is we start with 3. So right off the bat, we start with 3, but we can only have a maximum of 3. And here's the real kipper. We don't gain hero points if we have mythic points. So it's one or the other. So obviously hero points are used predominantly to re-roll a D20 roll that, should never have failed. You roll a nat 1 on like the slow spell. I don't blame you if you want to use a hero point, but the other reason is that they save you from dying. So it's interesting that they replace this. Now, part of it probably be they don't want people to have to track 2 different sources of resources. But if this does replace hero points, then you lose that ability to do that re-roll and kind of gain instead this ability to gain mythic proficiency. In some cases, that could be a good thing, but in other cases, it actually may not be a good thing. Additionally, we can see here that we always gain 3 at the start of the session, and we can only have 3 at a max at a time, but we can actually regain them in the course of the game by slaying mythic opponents, completing mythic deeds, or following your calling. So here, not only do we have this idea of having to do stuff in the game to get back the mythic points, which I love, but also it's basically kind of a meta currency reward for doing the thing that your character is supposed to do, aka following your calling, following your character's core ethics or ethos or belief. And do I think that makes for a better play experience? I kind of do. So what is a mythic deed? It's a task, form of a hazard or a non-combat challenge that restores an adventuring party's mythic points once successfully navigated. It's even possible that a party might uncover their callings after completing their first mythic deed. It should be at least a moderate challenge and involve hard or very hard skill checks. If a deed is easily accomplished without using your mythic resources, then it's not a mythic deed. Many monsters, mythic monsters, have mythic deeds associated with them, and these can serve as examples. These are presented in the mythic monsters. For mythic monsters whose presence in the campaign is only intended to last a single session, it's likely that any associated mythic deeds will be no more than 2 levels higher and 2 levels lower. So, if you slay a mythic opponent it restores 2 mythic points to the person who got the killing blow, and 1 mythic point to all the other mythic characters in the party. If we complete a mythic deed, everybody gets a full restore of mythic points. And if we follow their calling by taking actions particularly in line with the edicts of our calling, we restore 1 mythic point to our pool. Or a legendary accomplishment or epic sacrifice can restore 1 or more mythic points for a character, even if it's not one of the defined ways to recover it. In other words, if it just feels like you should be giving somebody mythic points, you can. So I love this. Number one, it's a limited resource. It's only limited to 3. You can get it back and you'll get it back at the beginning of next session anytime. So you don't have to worry about like people cheesing it or stacking it or trying to just get 3 per session. But if you do some really awesome stuff in the middle of your game, and this is gonna encourage you to go and do those mythic deeds and slay those mythic opponents and follow your calling and try to do legendary accomplishments. So what gets rewarded gets repeated, and these are all behaviors that I think are worthy of being repeated. I thought we had a super chat from Vin. So, are these rules any good? Well, so far, I'm pretty sure I like the way that they implemented Mythic Proficiency. We'll get into it. But instead of it just being this flat bonkers bonus, it's a huge bonus at low level and it's less of a bonus at high level. And then Mythic points, instead of just being this crazy pool of infinite points, it's a fairly limited pool of only 3 points, but you can get them back in the middle of a session. To that end, the mythic points are tied to the session, which again is not very simulationist and it's not very diegetic. What is a session in the context of your campaign world? But that does solve a lot of issues and problems. Now, of course, we lose hero points when we go to mythic. So we need to wonder, how do we prevent it? Well, here we go. Mythic heroes. And remember, like I said, one of the first things I loved from this book is they understood the first power you got as a mythic adventurer was hard to kill, is what it was called. And the idea being like, look, if we're doing this stuff, we're this isn't the funnel. This isn't the grindhouse D&D game. These are our big bad, heroes, and they don't just die randomly. So whenever a mythic character's dying value would increase to kill them, which is usually dying 4, but let's face it, it's dying 5 because everybody takes die hard. They increase their doom value by 1 and stabilize at 0 hit points. A mythic character doesn't permanently die until their doom value reaches 4, and as normal, you decrease this by 1 each time they get a full night's rest. That is great. That's even better rule. That's even better than the Pathfinder First Edition rule. Your character's down. It's not a freebie, but if your character would die, instead you stabilize and you go to Doom 1. And of course, Doom 1 stacks to Doom 2. So basically, you have to essentially get taken out, 4 times, maybe 4 or 5 times over the course of a couple days to truly die. And, while this doesn't not make your character immortal, it essentially does. And remember, too, as I've said before, if you play Pathfinder 2 and you're playing, for keeps, as long as you save a hero point, you're pretty much immortal anyways. And I mean, unless you get killed by a death effect, there's obviously ways you can die. But like anybody who spends their last hero point is kind of being foolish, unless the thing that was going to, you're re-rolling is going to kill you. Because as long as you have 1 hero point, your character can do basically this anyways. But I love this. I love that it's doomed and not wounded, because wounded can obviously be treated. So there's this idea that like it's almost like your character's mythic fate protects them. But it can only protect them so much, right? Like if your doom builds up too much, and it's using a great, system from the core game. So, and of course, as your doom value increases, in theory, right, you should be dying sooner. So it becomes more and more pressing as the doom value builds up. So it's not a freebie by any stretch of the imagination, but it almost makes your character immortal, and I think that's pretty cool. All right, so in first level. So at first level, like we could start the game with Mythic, or whenever we receive our Mythic power. So, right, if we unlock it later on, a Mythic character gains their Calling and the Rewrite Fate ability. The Calling gives them a way to spend and regain Mythic points and presents them with a set of edicts and anathemas. Once they receive their Calling, we receive an extra Mythic feat at second level and every even level thereafter, which they can only use for Mythic feats. Okay. So it is like an archetype in that we kind of get a dedication, and then we get an extra mythic feat at 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, 10th. But at 12th level, we have to use this extra feat to take our destiny feat for a mythic destiny. So obviously very strong shades here from of D&D 4th edition, where literally it's called your epic destiny, and you took it kind of at the end of the game, right? The last part of the game. So obviously if you're 12th level, you're getting into the end game there. They could take feats from that mythic destiny, or they could take lower level feats. Now, what's interesting about this is this seems to be character level. That makes me a little sad. We'll see. I haven't seen anything about mythic levels, but it does seem like this is working exactly like a free archetype. If a character receives their calling at a level after 1st, they typically gain all the mythic feats for lower levels, though they might gain them all at a slower pace rather than all at once, if that will work better in the game story. So there you go. If you get mythic at level 8, you would technically get your calling, and then you would get a feat at 2, a feat at 4, a feat at 6, and a feat at 8. So you gain a bunch of feats earlier. Cyber says that character level is normally tied to your mythic level, but they do explain how you can detach them if you want to. Yeah, again, I really appreciated in 1st edition that. Now, again, this is where I have to understand. I know how this game works. Like, in order to try to keep this thing balanced, I can understand why they might want to tie mythic powers, mythic feats to a certain character level. You might restrict what people can choose based off your campaign. Not really cool to be an apocalypse rider if everybody isn't going to become the new embodiments of death. As a GM, you should talk about what's appropriate. Totally reasonable advice. All right, so this is our core ability. We roll a skill check or saving throw and don't like the result. We can expend mythic points and re-roll with Mythic Proficiency, taking the new result. Okay, so wow. So this is a lot more powerful. Number one, remember, we start the session with 3 mythic points, not 1. It's 1 hero point. Number 2, not only do we get to re-roll, okay, but we also get to add Mythic Proficiency, which at low levels could easily be +6, +8. Now, the difference is we can only do this for skill checks and saving throws. So do not get to use it for attack rolls. And unless I'm completely missing something, I think the only D20 rolls that you make that aren't like a flat check is skill checks, saving throws, and attack rolls, or things that have the attack trait. So what's also interesting about this is one thing I didn't like. I've never liked this about hero points, by the way, in D&D. I'm sorry, not D&D. In Pathfinder 1, again, am I one of those people who says that casters, the Pathfinder 2 shits all over casters? No, because I do think classes like the Sorcerer, they're a little bit more toned down now, but I think do think they're very powerful, and obviously heal is the most broken spell in the game. However, I do think that it is unfortunate because with hero points, right? Who's making the most attack rolls, right? The fighter types, right? The martial characters. The spellcaster, sure, if they're making a ranged attack roll, they can use a hero point, but ranged attack rolls on spells usually aren't a great idea. And so there's really no way for a wizard to use their hero point to make an enemy re-roll a save, which would be the equivalent of the fighter re-rolling their attack roll. And there's no option for them to do that. So in a weird way, mythic points, because remember, you lose hero points. It kind of rebalances the playing field. We'll see what else they can do with it. But by getting rid of the attack roll, you're just making it skills and saving throws. This kind of puts marshals and casters kind of back on the same progression of how useful is this meta resource, right? Either hero point or mythic point. We get rid of hero points, we have mythic points. So I think that's a subtly very, very good move. But I also love that you get to add the Mythic Proficiency to it. So it's a reroll with a huge bonus, which is fantastic. All right. So we can have our callings based off of our circumstances and what calls to us and what's interesting to us and what we want to deal with. Now, already I can see here that we are not Acrobat's book, Caretaker. Interesting. So what it looks like, this is instead of being tied to stats, Remember the callings, if you will, the paths, the archetypes in Pathfinder 1 were tied to the 6 stats. Here, they seem to be more tied to the skills. So we could see here that one of them is acrobatics, when you balance, when you long jump, when you tumble through. One of them is artisans, which is craft and repair. One of them is bookkeepers calling, which is recall knowledge or earn income. It's a little weird. Mythic earn income. You gotta love the mythic earn income. Sorry. A thing over here opened up and it should not have opened up. Yeah, mythic baking is no joke. Oh yes, the powerful mythic baking. Yes. But anyways, we have caretaking, which is treat disease, treat wound. Handler is command animal, make an impression. Hunter is seeking or tracking. Demagogue is coerce or make an impression. Sages is recall knowledge. Guardians is using athletics to disarm or reposition or shove. Thespian is perform or performance. And thieves is using pick, lock, or steal or whatever. So in this case, they tied it to skills. Okay. So when we take a calling, we get edicts and we get anathemas. And this tells us what our character needs to do and what our character needs to not do. And remember, we can use these to potentially regain mythic points. However, what basically these callings let us do is we can use a mythic point to make a check at mythic proficiency for a very limited number of checks. Remember, these are all skill checks. So, disarm, reposition, shove are obviously athletics checks. Making a recall knowledge check is tied to one of our skills as recall knowledge, make impression, coerce, right? So these aren't attack rolls. They're a very limited set of skills. And additionally, once a day, we can regain a mythic point by doing something special with our skills. So a lot of times it looks like if you critically succeed, now remember, you're adding +6 or +8 or something to these skill checks, maybe +4 at higher levels or +2. So, you have a pretty good chance here of critically succeeding. But it is a very limited amount, right? Pathfinder First Edition, you just got a flat D6 that you could add to any D20 roll. Here, we have to, number one, we have to spend it before we roll it. Number two, it's only to saving throws. It's only to, we can re-roll, saving throws and skills. What's interesting here, let me see if I got this right. All right, so here's what's interesting to me. Cyber says, thank you for the super chat. I like the fact that these aren't tied to skills, but rather to actions. So if you use acrobat archetype to trip with acrobatics or Chirurgeon to treat wounds with crafting, these work. Adds to the builds. If you're into builds, I suppose. But yes, you are right. They are not strictly tied to the skills themselves. They're tied to the actions that are listed under those skills. It makes it so that you're not just pigeonholed into using one thing and this only applies for one thing. And I do think that is a clever bit of game design. But what's interesting to me is we can use Rewrite Fate and we can roll, if we roll a skill check, any skill check, we can re-roll it with a mythic point and add our mythic proficiency and take the new result. So why would I ever want to expend a mythic point to attempt one of these checks with mythic proficiency? Because I would just attempt the check, and if I succeed, great. If I fail, I'll re-roll and add my mythic proficiency. But not to just this list of 5 things, but to any skill check in the game. Like, why would you ever want to spend this beforehand? I mean, I guess the only thing I could think of is if you want to spend the mythic point beforehand to roll with, +8 bonus. And then if you fail, you can re-roll it with the bonus. Cyber says, if you're using it for something secret, no burst of mystical energy, you can't re-roll fate for something secret. Well, I'm curious then. Well, I mean, I think secret checks are stupid anyways, but, I mean, like the GM, you roll something that's secret and then the GM tells you what happens and you said, I don't like that result. I can rewrite fate, right? Well, no, I have to roll it. Okay. So if the GM rolls it, I don't like it. So I don't know. It's really interesting to me, or really weird to me that it doesn't seem like this. Anyways, yeah. So, in a certain extent, it kind of doesn't matter. No, I mean, if you were sneaking and you fail the stealth roll, do you want to burst? No, I want like a sudden cloaking of darkness. But I mean, I do think secret checks are really, anyways. Again, I might be overthinking this or underthinking this, but I don't think I would ever use this ability from any of these callings because I would just attempt to do it normally. And then if I fail, I'll re-roll it with Mythic Proficiency, which is, I get 2 bites at the apple and maybe I don't have to use my Mythic Proficiency. Is there something for intimidation? No, I only saw this one, which is coerce and make an impression. There's nothing I saw that said intimidate. So they apparently were aware of that that they didn't want people to use the most combat prowess one. All right. So, these are pretty tame by comparison. I'm not going to lie. Now, of course, remember in Pathfinder 1, not only you had 10 ranks of mythic. Not only did you get a mythic path feature, okay, called a path ability at every mythic rank. So you would get 10 path abilities over the 10 mythic ranks. If you got, again, my PCs only got to mythic rank 7. They didn't even make it all the way to 10. But so not only did you get 10 path abilities, you also gained 5 mythic feats. So you gained mythic feats and you gained your path abilities. And, you were kind of all in on your cool superpower, which I thought was always very neat. Yeah, it's not intimidate. Sorry. Intimidate is actually the skill. Demoralize is the action. Got to get it right. So in my personal opinion, compared to the champion's path and the path of the guardian and the path of the trickster and the path of the archmage and the path of the hierophant and the path of the marshal and the path of the champion, these aren't as compelling. I'm a wizard. Maybe I'm high level. Maybe I'm low level. My character gains, I become mythic. I am the path of the archmage, right? I'm the great paladin. I'm the great fighter. I am the path of the champion, the people's champion, perhaps. That to me is a lot more interesting than I am called by bookkeeping. It just, it's a little bit sub. Now we haven't got to Mythic Destinies yet. That is true. That is true, Nutrimancer. So let's take a look at this. All right. So we get these callings, and they give us an extra ability to regain mythic points. They give us a sets of edicts and anathemas that can guide our behavior. And they allow us to, on a very limited basis, on very certain subset of skill actions, to use mythic points to attempt the check with mythic proficiency. But I'm wondering why you wouldn't just wait till you failed and then rewrite fate. Okay. Then you can select these feats using the additional mythic feats you gain for being a mythic character. This lasts until 12th level when you choose a feat for your mythic destiny. Characters who don't have a mythic calling can't select mythic feats. Okay, so we get our power, or we get our calling at some level. And then at level 2 and 4 and 6 and 8, we get these choices of feats. So again, if we're first level and we're mythic, it looks like we only gain, obviously we gain the ability to rewrite fate and re-roll skill checks or saving throws with Mythic Proficiency, which is a big deal. We obviously gain this doomed ability, so we don't just die straight up. And then we only gain this very limited ability. So let's take a look what feats we could get. So first level, we don't get anything. Now again, I'm not trying to compare apples and oranges because I understand they're called the same thing and they're from the same company, but they are different things. At first level, at first mythic tier, you could be 10th level character, you could be a first level character. When you gain a mythic tier, 1, you get your first mythic feat, you get the hard to kill ability, you get your wellspring of mythic power, which is equal to double your tier plus your level. So or plus 3. So if you're mythic tier 1, you get 5 points per day. You get surge plus d6, which lets you add a d6 to any d20 roll, and you pick your progression. Let's say we were a champion because we're a fighter. You gain the champion strike ability, which you can use to basically make really ridiculously accurate attacks, and you get a path ability, which could be things like always a chance. You don't miss on a nat 1. Area assault, armor master, backlash, blow black, burst through, clean blade, climbing master, crusader, devastating smash, endless hatred, ever ready, flash of rage, impossible speed, meat shield, mounted maniac, mythic key, mythic rage, mythic smite, punishing blows, thunderstorm, tear apart, swimming master, titan's bane, uncanny grapple, and wall smasher. Now, that you get one of the. That's not even your feat, by the way. That's just your path ability. All right. So at level 2, we get the arm that cuts the waves. These are options. We don't have to get these. If we try to make an athletics check, now it's interesting, Cyber, because now we're back. I don't know if there's another situation where you could swim without athletics, but now it is specifically an athletics check only to swim. You can attempt a mythic point to attempt the check at mythic proficiency. Now, again, so this is letting us use our mythic points to do more things. But again, we can do any skill check in the game. And if we fail it as a free action, we can re-roll it with mythic proficiency. So, yeah. All right, when you would run out of air and begin suffocating, you can instead spend a mythic point to hold your breath for 10 more rounds. At least that's something extra. Am I really excited about that? No, not really. Binds that tie. You excel at assisting and capturing your foes. When you attempt a check to grapple an opponent who's already grabbed by an ally, you could spend a mythic point to attempt the check with a mythic proficiency bonus. And on a success, you deal double damage equal to twice your strength modifier. I'm going to be real with you all. I played Pathfinder 2 pretty much nonstop from 2020 to 2021, 2022 to 2023. So 4 years, give or take. We'll say 3.5 years. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone attempt a check to grapple someone who's already grappled by an ally. This one somehow is more niche than the arms that cut the waves. And it didn't even get art. It's not even that you excel in capturing your foes. You excel in assisting in capturing foes. All right. Ears that hear the truth. I do like the names of these, though. Arms that cut the waves, binds the tie, or hears to hear. Okay. Ears that hear the truth. You have an acute understanding of the rhythm of living things. When you attempt to sense motive, or when you roll perception for initiative, you can spend a mythic point to attempt the check or roll at mythic proficiency. When you attempt to sense motive or when you roll perception for initiative, you can spend a mythic point to attempt the check or roll. Now, see, KB says, so this is the one everyone takes. Well, wait a sec, KB. When you're rolling perception for initiative, aren't you rolling isn't that a skill check? If I roll perception, I guess perception isn't a skill. All right. So, okay, this one lets you roll with initiative with +8 or +6 or whatever. All right, feet that stride the sky. All right. Now, by the way, this one has a prerequisite. We can only do this if we have the acrobat's calling. You feel the call of the sky or perhaps a desperate urge to test the limits of the earth. When you or a creature you're mounted on attempts a high jump or a long jump, you can use a mythic point to allow it to do it Mythic Proficiency. And then we can also determine the DC and using our long jump DCs. Okay. Hands that unweave disaster. This is only for Thief. When we attempt an acrobatics check specifically to grab an edge, we can use a Mythic Proficiency. When we expend a Mythic point to disable a device to attempt the check at Mythic Proficiency. As normal, when attempting the check with Mythic Proficiency, this allows you to attempt to disable device, even if the check normally requires greater or expert proficiency. I can't believe that we have to take a feat after being the Thief's Calling to get this. And also, man, how often does an acrobatics check to grab an edge come up? Isn't the DC 20 or 15 or something? Isn't it ridiculously low? Like, I mean, all right. Storied Companion. If you have a pet or the Handler Companion, if your pet would save if your animal companion would fail a saving throw, you can spend a mythic point to reroll the save with Mythic Proficiency, and it gains temporary hit point. This one's actually not bad, but we've met before. You spend 1 minute in conversation with an area. Proficiency gates checks. Mythics can try anything. I think there are like 5 things in the game that proficiency gates. I can really only think of a handful. Most of them related to traps. I've never seen something in the game that's been gated by athletics. I've never seen anything in the game that's been gated by, acrobatics. So I've only seen it on, finding traps basically and removing traps. That's like the main places it's gated. So, I mean, yes, Mythic can try anything, which is cool, but, if it's gated, here's the other problem, Cybersmith. Sure, you get to roll with a +8 bonus, right? Or a +6 bonus because you're doing it Mythic Proficiency. But if something is gated at Master, okay, or something's gated at Expert, the DC is probably like 35. So even if you are level 1 or 2 and you're using this check and you're using Mythic Proficiency, you're still probably going to fail because the gating usually coincides with a really high DC. So anyways, I think the Mythic rules include new Mythic skill challenges that are gated more often, which, that's like giving everybody a raise of 10% and then raising the prices by everybody by 10%. You're like, you got more money. The cost just went up 10%. That's like you give people this ability and then you just create new challenges so that now you need the ability. So in a sense, that is actually a power loss because now you need these points and you need these powers to be able to do the thing. All right, so that's second level. We're not going to go through every feat. Those were very unimpressive. So I'm going to skip level 4. I'm going to skip level 6. I'm going to skip level 8. I'm going to go right to level 10. Okay. Because again, this is the last level that we would get these before we get our Mythic Destinies. So let's take a look at level 10. All right. So Become Destiny. It has a concentrate tag. You defy an external force blocking your mythic purpose. Spend a mythic point and remove any one condition you're afflicted with, and the ongoing effects of any one spell you're currently affected by, or free yourself from the effects of any one trap or hazard, such as a snare or a bottomless pit. When freeing yourself in this way, you immediately move. Now, this is a free action. We can immediately end any condition. We can immediately end the ongoing effects of any one spell, and we can immediately free ourselves from one trap or habit. That is significantly better. So this already tells us that these mythic feats are definitely tied into level, right? So, to a certain extent, like I get it. Like you're level 2, you're getting a mythic feat. You're not going to get something that's like really super powerful. You're going to get some skill bonus type stuff. So this is really cool. I don't know why it's called Become Destiny, but Call from Death's Door. If you have the Caretaker's Calling, that's the one that's like good at healing checks. If the dying condition of an ally would increase, trigger reaction, spend a mythic point, they lose the dying condition. Their wounded condition doesn't increase, and they heal a number of hit points equal to twice your level. Also very cool. Eyes that see eternity. Spend a mythic point and an action for the next minute. You get true sight and roll all perception checks with mythic proficiency. Okay. Also very cool. Mythic casting. All right, well, we had to wait till level 10. I was like, what? So here we go. You can infuse mythic power directly into your spells. If the next action you use, so it's a meta magic kind of. If the next action used to cast a spell, use mythic proficiencies for both your spell attacks and the save DC. But again, we had to wait a long time for this, but there you go. Casters can finally make something higher. Karama says there is one at level 6 that forces an opponent to re-roll if they critically succeed. Correct the story. Reaction. An enemy critically succeeds in an attack roll or a saving throw. Spend a mythic point. They have to re-roll the triggering attack result. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, so level 2, Level 4, there's only a couple. But all right, like level 6, this correct the story. That's a cool power. Like, your enemy comes in, they crit, and you go, reaction. Use up your reaction, so that's not nothing. That is pretty powerful. That's pretty cool. Mythic containment. You infuse a bag with mystical power, creating a prison. Spend a mythic point, then attempt deception, diplomacy, or intimidation with mythic proficiency against the will DC of a creature within 30 feet to trick, convince, or command it into entering the receptacle. What do you like? You like genie them? The creature can hold a creature of any size, and the creature enters the receptacle. It is grabbed, slowed 1, and has to hold its breath. Oh, I guess not. A creature trapped can attempt to escape. This is a very weird power. Get in my bag. There must be some folklore thing that they took this from that I don't quite know, but all right, here we go. Mythic Strike. We get the core abilities really come online here. Spend a mythic point, strike with a creature using a mythic proficiency, and the weapon or unarmed attack counts as a mythic weapon for purposes of overcoming mythic resistance or mythic immunity. And we have a shield one as well. All right, so it's kind of all over the place. Like, some of these are very powerful. Some of them are really cool. Again, the level 2 ones I think are kind of admittedly very disappointing, but clearly there's still an attempt here to make the game focused and balanced around these lower level concepts. And that's okay. I mean, that's part of what Pathfinder 2 is, right? Pathfinder 2 is, it's a game. It's a balanced game, and they don't want to just create rule sets that are just going to completely shit that balance out, right? Where you decide to play Pathfinder, and you decide to play low-level Pathfinder, and you decide to use Mythic, and now nothing in the game matters, and everything's made up. They still want you to have to make choices and still have to, care about your abilities and stats and stuff like that. And I respect it. I mean, I respect what they're trying to do here, but it's a little bit of a different feel than what we got out of the Mythic Adventures book from Pathfinder 1. And you know what? Look at this. Great. Good advice. Designing mythic encounters. Yes, good. That was in the Pathfinder 1 book as well, but I like that they're giving us, good examples of low level, mid level, high level play. What is no longer useful. Like, for example, once you're 6th to 10th level, you're mythic, you've got, you're already a level 8 character, and you've got now 4 or 5 mythic feats. It's like, avoid trivial threat encounters entirely. To be fair, I don't think anyone should be running trivial threat encounters ever, and use low-level encounters only when you want the PCs to experience an easy triumph. Low-level threat encounters are always an easy triumph, but yeah, you should still avoid running multiple severe encounters without giving the PCs an opportunity to rest first, yada, yada. Just really good, solid encounter balancing, because, quite frankly, that is what a lot of people complained about in first edition. People was like, I'm going to use Mythic, and they're like, oh, the game is completely broken. It's like, well, yeah, because these abilities aren't really designed to be used with any sort of concept of what a challenge rating is. So good, solid advice here. Now, for some odd reason, the book stops and gives us a ton of lore and background, which we're going to skip through before we get to the rest of your epic, right? So levels 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, the first 5 levels are sort of your calling. Then you choose your destiny. And while I think you can still use these feats to take older feats if you want, now at 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, we are, we sort of had our calling, what called us to the mythic, quest, the mythic adventure. Now we have our paths to immortality. And again, This is very much out of the 4th edition D&D playbook, right? In 4th edition D&D playbook, like I said, some of the epic destinies, literally, it was basically the idea was like, how does your character become immortal? And in some cases, it literally meant immortal. Like your character becomes a god and, lives forever, all time, and ascends and, to heaven or hell. But other ones, like for example, Smith, his character was a warlord, charisma warlord, and a lazy lord. And his character, or his epic destiny, was Mythic Sovereign. All right, and the Mythic Sovereign was a, or a Mythic Monarch or something like that. It was the idea was like you were basically Aragorn, right? You were this legendary king, and you weren't going to live forever. You're a human, or you're a dwarf. They don't live forever, but like your legend would, right? And like the dynasty that you built, the kingdom, the line of your name, the line of your people, would continue. And so it was a form of immortality. And so, we all really, really, really liked that as the game went on. So I like the idea that it goes from what called you to this path to what is the ending point. So looks like we've got, say 10 options here. Apocalypse Rider, Archfiend. Well, these are not the first two that I would think would pop up for a Pathfinder 2 campaign, but it's interesting. Ascended Celestial, Beast Lord, Broken Chain, Eternal Legend, Godling, Prophesied Monarch, there we go, and Wild Spell. And 3 of these sound very similar to ones that you saw in 4th edition. Eternal Legend reminds me of the Eternal Wanderer, and then Godling obviously reminds me of Demigod as well. The game is made up and the hero points don't matter. Well, something like that. I'm late, but I kind of assume Mythic would start at like level 10 or something. Yeah, so that's the way that traditional epic level D&D has worked. But Pathfinder 1 did it a little bit differently, and it looks like they're doing it here. And I'm all for it. I love the idea that characters could be low level and still be special, and maybe have that divine touch or divine spark or something special about them that sets them apart. I think that's pretty cool. Trajan says, it's like these mythic feats are meant to create the sense of a character that's even more special than usual. Think Greek heroes, Achilles, the swift-footed, Ajax of the silver spear. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like an element there of like Greek heroes and Greek mythology. And I'm not trying to say that like that stuff isn't cool, but like, the idea of like some of the feats that are attributed to Hercules and stuff like that aren't really stuff that usually comes up in a typical TTRPG session, but they kind of wanted to, give a nod to that anyways. Yeah, so the Apocalypse Rider for characters whose ultimate goal is to join the ranks of the riders of war, death, famine, and become the greatest of daemonkind. Okay, I don't really see that being something that maybe run one of those evil campaigns. Same thing with the Archfiend. All right, so we basically have the daemon, we have the demons and devils, we have the upper plane celestial, we have I have an animal companion and I want my animal companion to be awesome. We have the broken chain, who hold the idea of heroic. So this is our chaotic good character. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Huh. All right. So Archfiend is lawful evil. Apocalypse Rider is chaotic evil. Ascended Celestial is lawful good. Let's see here. Now maybe it kind of fades around. Broken Chain is like chaotic neutral or maybe chaotic good. I don't know. Maybe there's something here. Like there's 9 and maybe they're just kind of like, I'm not saying that they're tied to alignments or anything, but there is kind of something there to be said here. Daemons are neutral evil. Oh, okay. All right. So neutral evil, Apocalypse Rider. Well, then we don't have a chaotic evil. Damn. Oh yeah, that's true. Archfiend is demon or devil. All right. They don't correspond to alignment, but it's interesting because they got rid of alignment and it's like they put them in here. All right. All right. I'll do a poll. I'll see which one of these do we want to look at, because we're not going to look at all of them. We wouldn't have time for it, but all right. which, what are they called? Mythic Destiny. It's even, again, they were called Epic Destinies 4th edition. Which Mythic Destiny should we look at? All right, I'm going to skip the evil ones just because whatever, I don't care. Let's take a look at the Ascended Celestial, or I'm interested in this Broken Chain. What else do we got here? Eternal Legend and the Prophesied Monarch. All right, vote. I'm gonna drink some Monster while you guys vote. Which one we're gonna look at? Maybe we'll look at 2 if we have time. We'll do number 1 and number 2. Good stuff. Hopefully everybody's doing well today. We are going to be streaming on Thanksgiving Day. I'm not exactly sure when. I think my sister, I go to my sister's. I think she's doing it at like 2 p.m. So it'll probably be in the evening. I don't really do anything Thanksgiving Eve. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to hang out because we reached our $75 tip goal. In addition, we're still kicking away at our $500 camera rig fund. So hopefully we'll reach that before the end of the year. And this week is and we'll talk more about this on Thursday, but it is our 4-year anniversary as a channel. We published our first video November 30th, which will be Saturday. November 30th, 2020. That was our first episode of Rise of the Rune Lords. And as a result of that, we've been giving away, we've been doing raffles for tickets, along with free raffles, all month. And right now, as we approach the end, we've even got a $500 raffle up for some of our most engaged, most active, highest tiered patron members. So, it's been a lot of fun. And I love being able to, interact with and play back and give back to this community. And it's been a lot of fun to be handing out hundreds and hundreds of dollars of drive-through RPG and Amazon gift cards and stuff like that. All right. Well, Eternal Legend won at 45%. And if we do a second one, we'll take a look at the Prophesized Monarch. All right. That sounds like a pretty good list to me. Oh, Jason, I can't believe it's been 4 years either. I mean, when this channel started, I was, it was basically, the middle of COVID, and my photography business was failing, and I didn't have any idea. I had no money. So things have changed for the better for the most part. All right, so there's more stuff here. These are almost like it really. Yeah, they're kind of like classes in a way. All right, Eternal Legend. Let's see here. Do you ever think about the life that follows? Pick up your blade, warrior. If your death is won in glory, you will be remembered for all time. That is the true path to immortality. All right. So, you're the character. You're just like you're the Achilles. You're the warrior whose name goes down through the ages, which is pretty sweet here. So at level 12, you have to take, it's literally a dedication feat. Okay. So at level 12, you have to take one of these dedication feats. Then at level 14 and 16 and 18 and 20, you could either take only Eternal Legend feats, or you could take some of the older feats from levels 10, 8, and 9, or 10s and 8 and 6, but you probably won't. But sometimes you do. All right, so what do we get as a dedication? As your renown as a fighter grows, your call, and by the way, it doesn't have to be fighter with a capital F, right? It can be anybody that would benefit from, being a kick-ass warrior. Could be a monk, could be a ranger. As your renown, barbarian. As your renown as a fighter grows, your calling comes to fruition. Almost nothing can keep you down. During your daily prep, okay, choose clumsy, drained, or enfeebled for a. Like, come on, man. Why can't it be like, I don't know. I guess, that's tough. All right, you're a strength-based character. Do you choose I don't think most people would probably not choose drained. Drain's not super common. Would most of you choose enfeebled or clumsy? I'm curious. Clumsy affects your armor class. Enfeeble doesn't affect any saves. For the remainder of the day, when you roll a success against an effect that would impose that condition on you, you get a critical success instead. In addition, anytime you gain the chosen condition, reduce its value by 1. You can change the chosen condition with a single action. Oh, okay. That has the concentrate trait. Okay. Cool. I mean, that last thing gives you just a ton of flexibility. Like if you know you're going to go fight some undead that drain, boom, just kick it over to drain. I mean, as far as the dedication feat goes, remember, this is a bonus feat, people. We're not using our class feat to take this. I don't know. It seems pretty good to me. I mean, we get auto critical. Anytime we would gain it, we reduce it by 1 and we can swap between it, you know? If I was a giant barbarian, I would pick clumsy because of the later effect. No more clumsy 1. That's awesome. What a mise, Karama. That's amazing. Okay. And remember, this is our dedication fee, right? We don't really expect much. And we're getting this for free, so it's like double free. All right. So at 14, we get a couple options. Looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options for level 14. Demolishing Knockback has the Flourish trait, which is good to know because it's 1 action. So we can only do it once around, even though. You make a forceful attack that can push a foe through walls. Spend a mythic point and make a strike at Mythic Proficiency. Now, what's interesting about this, though, is that because this is the strike, right, we couldn't do, say, a power attack with Demolishing Knockback, or we couldn't do, like, a spell strike with Demolishing Knockback, right? It basically is just going to be a plain vanilla attack. I'm of 2 minds of this. You know, I'm a big fan of like combos. I like being able to, you know, oh, I'm going to take this power and mix it with this power, and now it's this power. Unfortunately, those kind of mix and matches, those kind of combos is how you end up with pun, right? So I understand why they do this in Pathfinder 2, but it is always a little bit like, you know, does it still work? I don't know. All right. All right, if you hit and deal damage, you push them 15 feet. If they would collide with an object with hardness 5 or less, it breaks and they're pushed through it for an additional 2d6 damage. All right. If the forced movement doesn't cause the target to collide with an object, the target must succeed at a reflex save against your class DC or be knocked prone at the end of the movement. Well, you know, knocking them 15 feet automatically and then they fake a reflex save and be knocked prone 15 feet away. I mean, that's pretty powerful, right? So you're just smashing them up. The whole pushing them through objects feels like a little bit like hardness 5. What is hardness 5 in Pathfinder 2? Hardness 5 is wood, thin stone, wood. So leather. So anything stone or iron or even like a wooden structure, right? Like a door, a reinforced door is hardness 10. Wood is, you know, chest, simple door. So basically doors, tables. You're not like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm level 14. Do I want my barbarian to fucking crush somebody in the chest and send them cratering across the room and, you know, through a pillar and then into a wall? They crash through the wall, break through that into the room beyond, hit into another guy, knock him over. Yes, I'm level 14. I'm a mythic barbarian. Let me do that. So, you know, this is like one of those things where it's like, if I was playing a game, I'd be like, yeah, all right. I don't know. We'll make it like, you know, I don't know. We'll make it like 50 feet or something, or like 50 feet, 100 feet if you critically hit them. And then they'll just take a bunch of damage depending on each thing that they smash through. We'll calculate the total hardness that they smashed through, and that's how much damage they took. I mean, you know, again, it's fun. It's cool. It's fine. It's balanced, but I'm level 14. I'm mythic. I want to, you know, I want to smash people through stone walls. Is that so much to ask for? All right. Earth to Heaven Strike. Cool name. 2 actions. Your blows hamper a foe's mobility and cognitive function by going low and then going high. Make a strike. If you hit and deal damage, they are clumsy 1 until the end of your next turn. Then make another strike against the same creature. If that strike hits and deals damage, the creature is also stupefied 1. If both strikes hit and deal damage, then the condition of both increases to a minute. And for all intents and purposes, this is each strike counts towards your multiple attack penalty, but you don't increase them until after you've made both strikes. So very similar to like dual strike or whatever, dual slash. I can never remember what it's called. Dual slice, double slice, dual slash. I literally get it. I get it wrong every single time. But and instead you just, free clumsy, free stupefied. Yeah, sure. Faultless defense, a reaction. You would take damage from a strike made by a creature. Okay, well, that comes up a lot. As a reaction, as you are struck, your steely determination reminds you, those who fight you, that they are destined to be no more than footnotes in your tail. Spend a mythic point to gain resistance equal to half your level against the triggering damage. Meh. And then attempt to strike at mythic proficiency against the creature. And if that strike hits and deals damage, the creature is also slowed 1. And apparently they are slowed 1 forever. There's no duration here. I mean, I like that. I mean, it's attack of opportunity. Whenever I get hit, I automatically take less damage. Then it's like a lawful good. Well, they don't have lawful good anymore, but it's like a paladin's champion paladin, I think is what they're called. The lawful good champion's reaction, except I can also prevent the damage to myself, and I can also slow them, and I don't have to crit. So yeah, and I'm attacking with mythic proficiency. Granted, I'm level 14 now, so like if I was a fighter or whatever, I'm only adding 2. But if I was a barbarian, I'd be adding 4. That's pretty cool. I like that. Immovable object. You have to be a master in fort or reflex, and yet it's one action. It's a stance. You're immune to forced movement, and if something would affect you prone, you aren't knocked prone. Flat out. Awesome. That's pretty cool. I don't know if I'd give up my stance just for that one power, but it is pretty cool. Getting knocked prone does suck. Oh, and also you can step as a free action. If someone would knock you prone, you don't get knocked prone, and instead you get to step. All right, Scattering Shout, 3 actions. Why does this remind me of WoW? What was the warrior's ability in WoW? Was it like Terrifying Roar, Terrifying Scream or something? Shout. Maybe it's just called Terrifying Shout, Battle Shout. Something like that, right? All right. So a Gestalt PC from 2020 GMG, stronger than a Mythic PC. This seems a cut above free archetype for the second half of the game at least. But I mean, Gestalt has always been broken. Nick, it's always been broken. I mean, like Gestalt has always been super broken, I think. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely more powerful than, I mean, that's also true of Cyber. I mean, it depends on what you're gestalting. Certain things match together in a really broken combination. But yeah, I mean, this feels much more, I mean, let's be clear. I mean, the level 2 mythic stuff was nothing to write home about, but by the time like that level 6 power that lets you make a opponent re-roll a crit, that's very powerful. The level 10 ability is very powerful. These seem very powerful. Like these do seem a cut above. Not like 3 cuts above, which is fine. But I mean, this is very powerful. William giving us some Tears for Fears. Shout, shout, let it all out. These are the things I can do without. Cybersmith with a $2 super chat. Sorry, I missed that. These names for these things are so evocative. They did a great job with the names. Even the ones that I think are kind of lame, like the low level ones, like, the arm that cuts the waves or whatever. That's cool. I mean, yeah, it's a mythic swimming check, but it's cool, All right, Scattering Shout. Each enemy within come on, 3 actions. Guttural Bellow that makes ears bleed. It's a 10-foot emanation. Ugh. Oh, well, you're Guttural Bellow, but I'm like literally standing on the other side of the room, of a smallish room, and I'm immune. Yeah. All right, well, it's an AoE push, 8d6 Sonic, or 15-foot, 16d6. This one's for 3 actions. I'll pass on that. You gotta give me more. You gotta give me more distance. No, I get it. It's enemies only. You know, each enemy. I get it. That's cool. I mean, like, look, I'm just saying for 3 actions to do 8d6. Come on. At level 14. Come on. In 10-foot emanation. Come on. We're fighting large creatures, huge creatures. It's not even that fun. You know, you might only get like 1 or 2 people. All right. And they have to be all around you because you can't, I mean, like, oh, what if you're hasted? Okay, but what if you're not hasted? Because you only it takes all of your actions. All right, so then we get to level 16. Death from above. Also, by the way, these archetypes have a lot more feats than a traditional archetype does, or at least it feels like it. Let's see here. Death from above. You are adjacent to a climbable surface. Seemingly to defy gravity, you use a nearby vertical surface to prepare yourself upward and then strike down like driving rain. Stride up to half your speed upwards. If you have a climb speed, you can use your full climb speed. It does not need to span the full height of your stride. Then you can make a ranged strike at a target within your weapon's first range increment and land in the space you began in. Or you can land in a space adjacent to a creature within 10 feet without taking falling damage and make a melee strike. Either strike deals an additional 2 dice of weapon damage. In addition, they have to make a fortitude save against your class DC or become stunned. So this is basically power attack, but it never gets to 3 bonus dice. It's only 2 bonus dice. But they have to make a fort save or become stunned 1, which is not bad for rinse on repeat. Now, obviously, it has the additional cost that you have to be near a vertical surface so that you can, I don't know, wall run up the wall, backflip off, and then land them with the death from above. What's interesting about this is you need to be nearby to a vertical surface to propel yourself upward. So if I was already above my enemy and I just dropped down on them, would this work? Like if I was, I don't know, say I was hanging from the ceiling, or I was on top of a pillar and I was going to just jump down on my enemy below me. Would this work? You would think it would, but part of it suggests that it would not. All right. All right. So this action, though, this feat does not get me as much. Leaping Hedgehog Strike. Leap horizontally. Treat your speed as 30 feet or more if this leap is less than 30 feet. If you end this movement next to an edge enemy, attempt an acrobatics check to tumble through. So you can see here, you know, like this Eternal Legend isn't always just for fighter. Like it could be for a rogue, right? Because they're going to be the people more likely to, or a swashbuckler, right? On a success, the target is also knocked prone. You then strike the enemy, and if they're knocked prone, you can spend a mythic point as part of the strike to make it at mythic proficiency. So tumble at somebody, knock them prone, and then strike them for free. So for 2 actions, we get a horizontal leap. Then we get to tumble through their space. Then we knock them prone if we're just successful on the tumble through. Then we get to strike them and at mythic proficiency if we knock them prone. So, you know, it's not like only always mythic proficiency. That's not bad for 2 actions. Pierce the Sky. Here's our ranged combat. Make a ranged strike on a hit. They suffer 2d8 persistent bleed damage. That's not bad. 2d8 persistent bleed is pretty good. The target must also make a fort save. So you hit them. If you hit, 2d8 bleed guaranteed. If they make the fort save, if they succeed, they're blinded until the end of its next turn. And if they fail, they're blinded for as long as they're taking the persistent bleed damage and for an additional round afterwards. And if they critically failed, not only as failure, but they get a -2 penalty to the flat check to remove it. That's brutal. Persistent bleed, 2d8 plus blinding, guaranteed basically. And potentially multiple rounds of blindness. Blindness is no joke. It's pretty good. That's pretty good. 2 actions. And, no limitation, doesn't even take mythic power. Yeah. All right, that's pretty good. Terrifying Mean. Master Intimidation is required. Whenever whether they've already heard of your legend or seen your prowess on the fields of battle, they're already quaking in their boots. You gain resistance against bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing strikes made by creatures with a frightened condition. This resistance is equal to 4 times the value of the creature's frightened condition. When this resistance applies to at least one of the creature's strikes during their turn, the creature doesn't reduce the value of their frightened condition at the end of their turn. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, the people that are going to be frightened 2 and frightened 3 of you are going to be way lower level than you. So getting 12 resistance against all physical attacks, basically, against people that are already much lower level than you, isn't that big of a deal. It's much less impressive when the higher level opponent, maybe you manage to get frightened 1 on them, and you're gaining resistance 4, and you're level 16, so you're taking 40 damage a hit or something. It's not nothing, but the fact that you have to have put a significant frighten effect on them. That being said, I think it's full of flavor. I just don't know how useful and powerful it is. But Weft and Warp. 3 actions. All right, so we better get a lot from this. With graceful poise, you perform a dance of dangerous attacks. Stride up to half your speed towards an enemy. So 3 actions, we're getting a half stride. If you end this movement adjacent to them, make a melee strike. If you hit, you can reposition the target into your square at the same time that you step into that square, and then you can make another strike against the same target, who would then off guard to that attack, and then you can step away from that enemy. So for 3 actions, we kind of get this really weird move and make 2 attacks with... No, we still get multiple attack penalty. They just get off guarded. I don't know. That one I don't see coming up a lot. It seems a little bit too circumstantial. Yeah. I mean, unless like the repossession is like really valuable and key to you, and I guess you do get the step away, so you're like getting another action back on the end of it. I mean, you're getting 4 actions technically. It's just the stride's at half speed, and the reposition's free. So maybe it's like, if the reposition is worth something to you, that's pretty good. If not, I don't think it's really worth it. But if the reposition is good for you and the stepping away is good for you, then it's like you're getting almost 4.5 actions worth of actions out of this 3 action activity. All right, level 18, near the end. Exaltation Overwhelming, another 3 actions, once per day. So flat out, only once per day, 1 3 action. Raising your weapons aloft, you gleam with radiant power. You fulminate, what a good word, with power and glory, making it clear to all that your legend is real. Spend a mythic point. All enemies who can see you must succeed at a will saving throw against your class DC or become frightened 3. All right, well then, that makes that other ability a lot better. You and any ally who can see you may choose to strike or stride as a free action. Well, hot damn. I mean, it's only once a day, but I mean, that's baller. 3 actions, drop an AoE, massive AoE. Anybody could see you. Whole battlefield, frighten 3, and then all your allies can strike and stride for free. And all their strikes are made at Mythic Proficiency. Now, of course, what constitutes an ally? I don't know about you, but it'd be pretty sweet because it's any ally who can see you. What if I did this on a battlefield, right? Like, and I give my entire battlefield, the entire enemy battlefield frighten 3, and I give all of my soldiers, a free attack at Mythic Proficiency, and they're low level. Like, that's the kind of thing I see this, it's more of an idea, but I mean, how many people can be your ally? I don't know if Pathfinder 2 ever really made that clear. Legend of Combat, 1 actions. You deliver a lightning fast series of blows and strikes, bringing your strength of your legend to bear against all those who have yet to experience your prowess. Spend a mythic point. It's 1 action. For the next minute, you gain an extra reaction at the start of your turns. You gain the speed of arms reaction. It's funny, anybody who played Northern Reaches will remember some of the mythic powers that you could get and some of the special bonus abilities. And the one was basically you got extra reaction, but it was like permanent divine speed, I think it was called. But so reaction, your turn begins. You make a strike against one opponent within your reach or stride directly towards an opponent. If this is the first time you've struck that opponent during this encounter, that strike is made at Mythic Proficiency. I mean, extra reaction's nice, and you can use your reaction on your turn to make an attack or stride, and then potentially if you keep bouncing around the combat, you're going to be making all of your attacks with mythic proficiencies. Pretty good. Mythic weapon specialization. When you make a strike with mythic proficiency, your additional damage from weapon specialization increases to 12. I don't think I like that. Like, that's so little damage bonus at the end of the game, and you're not like making all of your weapon attacks with with mythic proficiency. So I don't know if I love that one. I was hoping it was just going to say you just gain mythic proficiency. Silly me. I don't know. That feels a little underwhelming. What was it? 1, 2, 4, 6. So you're basically getting right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of +6, you're getting +12. If you're a fighter, instead of +8, you're getting +12. Like 4 extra points of damage, 6 extra points of damage. Level 18 feat, and it's circumstantial and fairly limited, right? You only get so many mythic points per day. Unstoppable force. Prerequisites. Immovable object. That's the one where you get the stance that you can't be moved, right? Yeah. That's pretty funny. Good flavor win there. When you are in the stance of immobile object, you ignore difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain. I mean, we're at the level where everybody's flying and stuff anyways, but you never know. Once per 10 minutes, if you dismiss your immovable object stance, you can stride as a free action. And at the end of that stride, your final footfall causes an explosion of energy. 20-foot emanation, 14d6 damage. Each creature. Creatures that fail to save are knocked prone. All right. That's pretty good. I mean, we have to give up our stance, but enter the stance, run, end it, 14d6. Not for a spell, but on repeat, 20-foot emanation. So that's like a 45-foot diameter effect, and fail on a knock prone, and it's force damage. And there's a lot to like about that. That's pretty powerful. Again, much better when you're fighting a group of monsters that can, if you could hit 3 or 4 things with this, that's awesome. But it is all creatures, so you could potentially affect your allies, and it becomes much less useful if you're only using this against 1 or 2 people. Now, on the other hand, if you're fighting 4 people and you can get 3 of them with this, and they all take damage, and 2 of them fall prone or 3 of them fall prone, then that's pretty powerful. All right, and we've got 3 level 20 feats, so we'll only ever get one of these. Unstoppable force. So we have to have that immovable object. Oh, I just read that. Sorry. There's only fight through oblivion. Feat 20. Mortal wounds that would kill other warriors are no more than the flutter of butterfly wings to you. When you are reduced to 0 hit points, you are not knocked unconscious, and you do not gain the dying condition. Until the start of your next turn, you become immune to all damage, but you also can't regain in hit points in any way, except for the following. If you strike and damage a foe on this turn, you regain 4d8 plus 30 hit points. Otherwise, your wounded value increases by 1 and you remain immune to damage and healing. This cycle continues until you regain hit points by damaging a foe, or until you reach wounded 4, at which point you lose the wounded condition, fall unconscious, and gain the dying condition. Well, that's a long-winded way of saying that you're basically never going to die. Because remember, we already have the thing too, where if we would die from the dying condition, we just gain the doomed condition. So like, if you take this, you're level 20, so probably never going to come up, but you're basically invincible. Like even more so than you could otherwise be. All right, finish their story. 2 actions. Although your tail is immortal, your foes are not. Although your tail is immortal, your foes are not afforded such an advantage, and mainly only serve to further your legend. When the time is right, you can shepherd a weaker opponent off this mortal coil. Spend a mythic point, then make a strike at mythic proficiency. Now remember, we're level 20, so fighting lower level, weaker opponents is not usually something that we have a hard time with. A lot of people do not have finished their story, but I promise you there's a lot of level 20 that when they are fighting a weaker opponent end up helping them shuffle off the mortal coil. Anyways, the strike counts as 2 attacks for your weapon. So we're making 1 attack against a weaker foe. It counts as 2 attacks for our multiple penalty and either kills or damages them depending on their level. And then they become immune. If they're 16th level or lower, they die immediately. So we're level 20 and we're fighting something that's 16th level or lower. yeah, that's not, that's not great, you know? So, not absolutely in love with that because of the fact that it's like, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't, I just don't get excited about 12 points of damage. So this kills somebody, and if they're 17th level, which is still 3 levels below us, by the way, they take an additional 3 damage dice, and then if they're our level or 18th level, 19th level, it does 2 additional damage dice. So, I mean, at 18th level, this is worse than power attack, right? So, because power attack at level 18 does 3 extra dice of damage every time. So if we finish their story and they're higher level, this literally is worse than power attack. So that's unfortunate. And if they're 16th level or lower, well, if we just used power attack and then we would hit them and we would almost assuredly crit them, they'll just be dead pretty much probably anyway. So, this one, fun, neat, but I think it's kind of been, hit a little too hard by the balanced bat. Because, like, they didn't want to make power attack useless. Why would I ever take power attack? I have finished their story, but it's like, come on. It's a 20th level feat for Mythic. Living epic. You are a living legend, a being who cannot be claimed by death, as death has already passed you. You are beyond whatever they wish to make you. When you are killed, you instead disappear. You reappear anywhere where your name is spoken in the next week. Your name must be said in the context of someone recounting one of your exploits, including your death. If the person speaking your name is a close ally, you return to life with only 1 hit point. But if a stranger speaks your name, you return to life with full hit points and gain a +1 status bonus to attack rolls, perception, saving throws, and skill checks for an entire week. If no one speaks your name within a week of your death, your soul enters the River of Souls, but then you can still be brought back to life by other means. Again, you're level 20. I don't know how many times you're going to die at level 20 that this is ever going to come up. Even if for some odd reason your character did die and then you got brought back, it's like, how useful is that? So, I mean, quite frankly, these are almost kind of flavors, right? Like, I don't know that any of these really ever matter because I don't know how often you're going to die. And I don't know how often this fight through oblivion is going to matter, especially since if you go to dying 4, dying 5, you become Doom 1 anyways. Finish their story is pretty much power attack for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where it's like, I might use my level 20 mythic feat to take something of lower level, which, it's just kind of sad, but, all right. Well, we won't have time to go through another one, but, all in all, I think this is pretty good. I mean, I think it's not, is it as exciting? Is it as exciting as Pathfinder 1's Mythic Adventures? No. But Pathfinder 1 Mythic Adventures was exciting because it was completely broken and it made your characters completely crazy and off the charts, which is fun. But Pathfinder 2, I think, has a philosophy, and I don't think it's the wrong one, which is people are playing our game because they want there to be this game challenge. They don't want to just, I chose this thing and my GM's using mythic rules, so now everything that we fight in the game is a joke. It should be no surprise that if you're mythic, you're going to be more powerful. Number one, you're just getting all these free feats. Some of them are very powerful, especially in the context of Pathfinder 2 feats for the level that you get them at. And, you'll be able to fight severes and extremes with a lot more ease. That's okay. That's cool. That's mythic. And, we know that the book mentioned there being mythic monsters and mythic deeds. So there's a cool incentive there and a way to, go up against something more of your metal, more of your power level. So I really like that. But, I feel like they succeeded at giving us these cool abilities that do sort of change some of the feeling of some of the power levels of the game without completely throwing the balance of the game out the window. And I like that the way that the mythic points start a session and go to the end of the session. I like that there's ways to get them back that kind of involve narrative role-playing elements. I think that's a cool thing, especially since your characters are supposed to be these larger-than-life heroes, and they should be seeking out mythic challenges, mythic deeds, and really like following their calling in order to keep empowering the legend of their story. So that's pretty cool. The low-level mythic feats are kind of disappointing because, you're mythic, but you're still low level, so that they can't be completely broken out the bat. But, some of those level 10 feats and even that one level 6 feat, pretty dang good. So I think you'd have a lot of fun with that. And I think you would feel powerful. And, you're getting 3 per session. So I think for a lot of people, you're probably going to end up, you start with 1 hero point, you get maybe another one, maybe you get a third one. I think 3 hero points a session is probably pretty standard for most people. So you're like, hey, you know what? You get spotted those. You just start the session with 3 of them, and you can even potentially get more of them back. And by the way, remember, if you complete a deed, everybody gets restored to full. So it's kind of like, it's kind of incentivizes you to spend them, which I like. Additionally, which I never liked about hero points, it was kind of bad play to use your last hero point to try to do something awesome, because now with no hero points, your character didn't have that death protection. But the death protection in this game in Pathfinder 2 Mythic does not rely on you having mythic points left over, right? It just says that if you would die, instead you become doomed 1 and you stabilize, which is very cool, because that means that, your mythic power is there and you're going to spend it. And damn it, you should be spending it. You shouldn't be like saving hero points. I mean, you should, because statistically, this is a really good idea. You shouldn't be saving hero points and avoiding doing cool things or avoiding doing really risky things because you want to save a hero point so that you can avoid and cheat death. I mean, you should do that because it's a smart play, but it feels kind of counter-purpose. They solve that issue here by getting rid of hero points and then basically saying, look, regardless of how many mythic points you have or how many you've spent, you can just make this kind of stop. And I really like that, If you use the rule that decouples mythic from character level, I think you'll get really cool low-level encounters. I agree that this maintains overall balance, and that's really tough to do. Now, we didn't get into the rules of that, but Cybersmith did tell us that that those rules exist, and I think that is awesome. And that they looked into that as part of this. In this book, there was a separate progression chart of deeds, they were called, that you had to accomplish in order to gain your next mythic tier. So instead of XP, you had to go do mythic important deeds or trials. Sorry, they were called trials. So over here on this table 1.2, you can see that you needed to, to go to level 2 or mythic tier 2, you had to do 1 trial. But to go from 9 to 10, you had to accomplish 5 of these mythic trials. So there was this kind of idea of like ever escalating cost, but it wasn't strictly speaking tied to character level. Now, of course, while you were doing these trials, you were probably gaining experience points and were probably going to level up. I don't know how many people use Mythic Adventures and Mythic Ranks from Pathfinder 1, but my guess is that there were very few campaigns where like, you had PCs that were Mythic rank 8 or 9 or 10, and their PCs were only level like 4 or 5. I mean, I'm sure somebody did that just to be a troll and to have fun with this, but for my campaign, they ended at level 20, and some of them were Mythic rank 6, some of them were Mythic rank 7. So, they didn't fully make it all the way to Mythic rank 10, but there was kind of a natural progression. Like they finally gained their first Mythic rank, honestly, probably around level, 10 or 11 or something like that, in that ballpark. And they had to accomplish diegetic deeds within the dungeon space in order to gain the next mythic tier. And so, they were doing that at a rate of about 1 to 2, 1 every level or 2. So it kind of progressed with that. But that's just that's the nature of the beast. But yeah, I mean, when I read these feats, some of them seem powerful because they give you an ability that you don't really have much of in Pathfinder 2. A lot of them read fairly similar to a lot of other abilities that we've seen in the game. They just add like a little bit of extra, like, blah, 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 and it knocks them prone, blah, 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 and they're stunned 1, blah, 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 and they're frightened. So that's fine. That's cool. I mean, that's powerful without being over the top, completely ridiculous broken, right? If someone like me or Smith or whatever made mythic rules, they'd be like, they're frightened 10, the area of effect is everyone that can see or hear you, if they pass the save, they're frightened 3, if they critically succeed at the save, they're still frightened 1, right? That would be the way I would design it. If they critically fail the save, they die. But I like stupid, dumb, broken over, especially at higher levels. Like I like, super dumb, powerful, over the top stuff. The game as a challenge doesn't really interest me that much because I don't really think it's that much of a challenge because I'm one of those like elite gamers who like, played Warhammer and all those other games. So, just saying. So, for me, I don't really mind it when the characters are really ridiculous and powerful, especially when it's something like Mythic and they're super powerful. And at a certain point, remember too, I also play games where there is no functional challenge to the characters. It's really just a system designed to explore how awesome they are, right? The question of, it's not if they're going to succeed, it's how they're going to succeed. And I don't mind that, but I don't think Mythic gets rid of that entirely. That being said, your character is functionally immortal, which is a good thing. I like the way they did Mythic Power. I like it better than the way they did it, like the count, the total. When you're higher tier, it's like, how many Mythic Power points do you have per day? 17. You're like, okay, I'm just going to spam. 3, which you can potentially get back through specific mythical actions throughout the course of the session. Very good. And it resets at the beginning of the session. So players know they're like, there's no point holding on to it, right? Because if you end the session with 2 points unspent, you're like, damn, I'm going to go back to 3 anyway. So there's no, use it or lose it. And I love that. And I think that's going to drive people to play, pretty cool. I don't know. I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. It didn't seem overly powerful and broken, but it seemed to cut above. And quite frankly, it's in the spectrum of Pathfinder 2, I think that's the best that I could give to it. There's a couple of things that I think are just kind of naturally disappointing to me, like completely being tied to level. Although again, there's supposed to be a section in the book that talks about decoupling it, if you will, from level, which is I think a good thing. Let's see here. I'm just seeing if I could see it anywhere quickly in this book. Mythic rituals, mythic spells, mythic equipment, basically. So yeah, I mean, I think that's very well done. If I had to give it a rating, again, not a review. I haven't played the game. I haven't played with the classes. I've only seen literally, one of the epic Mythic Destinies. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a very solid B+ to me. For me personally, there's a couple of other things that I would have liked to see and just be a little bit more excited about certain things and stuff. But, I think B+ is solid B+. I think it's done very well. I would like it to be a little bit more powerful, to be honest with you. And some of those earlier feats, I think, were a little underwhelming. The callings kind of felt weird to me, and I still don't quite understand, despite the whole, but you gain Mythic Proficiency, and that counts for, thresholds. But that doesn't really seem to come up that often. At least it hasn't in my experience. And so I often wonder what the point of those is when you can just re-roll a skill check, any failed skill check with Mythic Advantage or Mythic with advantage with Mythic Proficiency. But overall, yeah, very good. I mean, if I got more into it, maybe I could see it going up more. And it seems like it's a really complete set of stuff here. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. There's monsters, there's spells, there's rituals, there's artifacts, there's equipment, there's lore, there's rules for Mythic, there's the class archetypes of Avenger, Blood Rager, Seneschal, Vindicator, and Warrior of Legend. So class archetypes finally kind of in the game too, very just randomly throwing in a bunch of class archetypes, which we've not seen a lot of in the game. And then 2 new classes and a new ancestry. So Nephilim as an ancestry, and then Animist and Exemplar as 2 new classes. And then information about the War of the Immortals, War of Immortals itself. I mean, yeah, that's a lot. I mean, it really covers the whole gamut of stuff. So I think that's from a book design perspective, pretty great. And I like the art. The art, for the most part, I think is very flavorful and very fun. I do love that they use the they kind of use the same art for the Vindicator. Well, I can't remember what character was this from Pathfinder 1. What iconic was this? I don't remember. Anyways, I thought it was good. Yeah, I think it was the Inquisitor. Yeah, that's it. Inquisitor. I think it was the Inquisitor. I think it says under the GM section for running Mythic. Is there a GM section? Well, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Kyle, which is they want you to buy this book, even if you're not planning on playing Mythic Play, right? You're like, I'm going to buy, like, there's a lot of people out there that will buy this book or not, because, everything's for free for Paizo technically once it goes onto the SRD. You'll buy this book because you're like, I just care about Animist and Exemplar. I want new classes because I have 27 of them or something. That might not be fair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. There's 23 classes currently, so this will bring the total to 25. So we're getting very close. But anyways, there's 23 classes. That's not enough for me. I need 2 more. And so some people will buy the book just for that. But overall, I mean, yeah, plus 2 more in the playtest, right? Yes. How could I forget that you know what? Joke's on you. We decided to outsource Battlecry 3, and we just outsourced it to Paizo. We said, you know what? We'll let you guys take this one. Please release on August 22. We'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, right. We got the Battlecry classes. We have it's not the Warlord. I can't remember the name of it, but the Warlord. And what's the other class from Battlecry? Do I even remember? No, I don't remember. Oh, yeah. The Bodyguard. Yeah, the Guardian. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Commander, very good name, by the way. Commander is a very good name. Warlord is good, but I actually like Commander better than Warlord. So Warlord is what it was called in 4E, but Commander's better. So the fact of the matter is, I think Pathfinder 2 is continuing to lean into some of its gamist tropes. And I think that this is the niche that it has, dug out for itself. I mean, sure, there's a lot of people who are really interested in the lore of Pathfinder 2 and the storytelling opportunities that the game provides, which is great, which is awesome. But, you can role play pretty much in anything. So what this game is really trying to do is create a really interesting game experience. It's obviously really interested in giving people a ton of options for playing Path Builder and, building characters, tweaking characters, mixing and matching it up, and, maybe sitting there and just having fun making ideas for builds. I'm not a big build guy. I've talked about this before, but a lot of people are. And I think Pathfinder 2 is sort of like, it's the super complex game that has a lot of, or sort of super complicated game that isn't that complex, right? Overall, the rules of Pathfinder are pretty simple on a grand spectrum of things. Everything kind of follows the same basic principle. It's a D20 game. But there's a lot of complication. There's a lot of different choices that you can make at almost every single level of the game. And for people who love that kind of, intricate detail in their gaming, this is the great system for them. And I think the people who play 5e, because if you play 5e and you're like, we don't even roll dice, we just role play. Well, then it doesn't matter that you're playing 5e. You could be playing Pathfinder 2 and barely roll any dice and not role play, right? Or barely rolling dice and only role play. That's totally fine. But for people who want something that's a little bit more crunchy, has a little bit more mechanical depth, gives them a lot more mechanical options with, hundreds of weapons, thousands of spells, dozens of classes, dozens and dozens of classes, the ability to archetype into every other class, plus additional archetypes, plus growing list of class archetypes. Now you add Mythic on top of that. There's just it can be overwhelming for some people, no doubt. You know, if you show up at somebody's game, well, we're playing Pathfinder 2, and you're like, oh, I play D&D. This will be easy. And you sit down and they go, okay, we are doing a Pathfinder 2 campaign. We are going to be using free archetype and mythic rules. And you're like, and we're also using the stamina resolve variant. And you're like, okay, this is a lot of moving pieces. And yeah, the game could be very, you know, it could be very high frequency, a lot of pingy sharps. But overall, I think I like the direction that Pathfinder 2 is going in. I loved, you know, the psionic, the thaumaturge, the kineticist. From what I've seen of the commander, I liked it. The guardian, not so much. So, you know, we're going to do streams about the remaster, but some of the changes are literally the changes that I was like, oh, this class needs to get rid of this, or this class needs this thing, because if it doesn't, and then you're, you know, paying an unnecessary tax, or it's being penalized unnecessarily. So a lot of classes, in my opinion, got significant upgrades in the remaster, and not just like in raw power level, but in like the playability, the play feel. And I think that's what's so important. So overall, I feel like the design team is doing a really good job. So I think this is just another example of it, without breaking the bank, right? Without like destroying everything. Cause, you know, again, you know, the main thing that, I mean, Pathfinder 1 wasn't balanced anyways, which is another reason why I think people are crazy for complaining about how unbalanced this was. Pathfinder 1 was already not balanced. But the fact of the matter is, like, this stuff was really powerful, and it did make your characters kind of uber characters. I think these powers from War of Immortals are powerful, and I think some of these feats do give you some pretty powerful abilities, but it's not going to completely wreck your campaign. If for no other reason, then you only get 3 mythic points per session, depending on how you want to pace it. If there aren't any opportunities for mythic deeds or mythic monsters or whatever, mythic challenges, maybe somebody gets 1 extra, you know, during the course of the session because they trigger something off of their calling or something. But for the most part, you can kind of control the pacing of that. And so they're only getting like 3 or 4 of these cool powers per session. I think that's totally reasonable. I don't think that's going to completely destroy or break your ability. And a lot of the static things that really just give you a ton of power don't come until later levels anyways. So yeah, good design. And some people are crazy enough to play with 4 archetypes. Who would ever do that to themselves? Caramel, to be completely clear, I never expected anybody ever to get that powerful. So it was almost kind of a joke. But here we have it. But you know, there's only 4 weeks left, so you got to make it count. Right. If the 23 plus 1 plus, or 23 plus 2 plus 2 coming, if the 27 classes isn't enough, you can also go steal the Starfinder classes. By the way, for those of you keeping score at home, Southern Beaches, which is our weekly or our mega campaign of Pathfinder 2, this year Southern Beaches has an interesting rule, which is you level up automatically every week, and we start at level 3. Currently, everyone is level 15, and we're in week 13. So that means we've been playing this campaign for 13 levels, or 13 weeks. In those 13 weeks, Karama, because you do get some bonus experience points when you GM, but you get it when you play too, but you also get it when you GM. Karama has accumulated 29,450 experience points. 29,450 experience points in 13 weeks. So that is crazy nuts. So what's up, CR? Good to see you. So yeah, one last reminder before I go, check the doobly-doo below. We have a link to a friend of the show, a patron, Kickstarter. They're out of New Zealand. They're making small independent comics, and they and their team would absolutely love your support. Even if you just want to throw a couple bucks their way, I would appreciate it greatly. I think we all get caught up teary-eyed, you know, in Kickstarter being used by big multi-million-dollar companies with huge tasks, and I feel like, you know, when Jack, you know, or not Jack, but when Kickstarter was created, the idea was to fund and allow small independent creators who could literally never ever do this to fund their dreams. And, you know, it's not about $1 million Kickstarters. It's about, hey, we raised $3,000 and now I can finally, you know, print this pamphlet or do this piece of art, which I've wanted to do for so long. So I'm a big fan of that. I'll be supporting it. Hopefully you will too. All right, Cyber. Well, thank you so much for your support and thank you for your expertise. I appreciate it. Karama, Cybersmith, a bunch of folks here who weighed in with their PF2 expertise. This is one of the reasons why when we do our Pathfinder 2 all classes ranked remastered, I'm going to be bringing some patrons on, patrons who have been playing Pathfinder 2 pretty much daily, weekly, since the remaster came out. People who have had experience and reps with the Player Core 1 classes and the Player Core 2 classes, the remastered versions. And we're going to take a look at those initial tier rankings that we did for low level, mid level, and high level, and we're going to re-rank them. And we're going to see how did this class change. We're going to talk about the class and what did they add? What did they take away? Does this affect the tier ranking? And I'm hoping that we'll see a gradual shift upwards. And I'm hoping that some of the classes, which I had ranked Ds, I'd love to see, like, again, I would love to see the S's come down to A's. And I would love to see the D's, go up into the B. I'd love it if all the classes were at A, B, maybe a handful of A, at A, a handful of C, and then a bunch of B, right? Like that. I mean, it's impossible to get everybody at the same level, but anything in the A, B, C range is totally acceptable. S's and D's, and obviously F's, I don't think we give anything an F. Maybe we did, are just not on the table. But yeah, so that'll be fun. And we're gonna be doing that over, up through the Christmas holiday. So more Pathfinder 2 to come. So hopefully you look forward to that. And it's interesting for me kind of diving back into Pathfinder 2. I've been kind of living in a different world this year as we kind of explored a bunch of different other games. So whether you are here for the Pathfinder 2 content or you're here for the other game content, I just want to say thank you so much. If you don't join us Thursday because you're busy, because it's Thanksgiving, I just want to say thank you for being part of this channel's success over the last 4 years. When we started this thing, I set the over-under at 100 subs to Bob, and Bob laughed at me and said, "Oh, I'm taking the under," because we never dreamed in our wildest imaginations that we would be, 13,000 subs and a thriving Patreon and actually be able to do prize giveaways and all this other fun stuff and have a whole community of people playing a ton of different games, and that's been a unbelievable, rewarding thing for me, especially in a time when so much else has been sort of chaotic and shifting. It's nice to have these games to lean back on. All right, everybody. Let's see. Open worlds. Yes, we are going to do. Open world. We did do rankings for Psionic and Thaumaturge, but they were based almost entirely on speculation. Like they were just brand new. They may have even just been in the play test. We were just kind of guessing based off what we saw. But we're going to do a deeper dive into Psionic and Thaumaturge, and then we're going to do Kineticist, which was not out at the time when we did that. When is the KOC refurbished bunker with 24/7 game news? I would love to do a gaming news channel that wasn't just super clickbait. But gaming news doesn't come out that often, so I don't think we could swing 24/7. All right. Well, thank you so much to the incredible group that came out tonight. Cybersmith, thank you for all the super chats. Thank you, Doc Flamingo, for getting that adventure re-going again. And thank you to everybody who subscribed and liked and comment. Please share this video if you found it useful or thoughtful or interesting. If you're having thoughts or comments, leave them in the description below. We'll be letting you know when our upcoming streams are coming up. Pathfinder 2, if you're interested, we're going to be doing a couple of those. Otherwise, we'll probably still be doing some first looks and some other deeper dives and stuff. Otherwise, I will see you on the Discord where you should join us. Link in the description below. And if not there, have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody.